Well, when I was about 16, I went on vacation with a cousin of mine. We were both 16, and we went to this lake it was up in Oklahoma called Ten Killer. And it was a cool lake. We went on this vacation and got to do a lot of stuff. His dad, who's also my cousin, I guess I would say, but he rented a boat. We got to go out and do skiing and did kneeboarding for the first time and everything. But what was really cool about this lake was the cliffs that you got to jump off of, which sounds like maybe you're going to kill ourselves. But we went up on these cliffs, and we had never done it before, and you see other people doing it, and we climb up to the top, and it's always a lot higher when you get to the top, and you're looking over, and you're looking down there like, is that really water down there? Am I going to die? I should have got my life right with God, which I wasn't then, so I made it. But no, we got up there to these cliffs. We're 50 to 70 feet high up there, and we're looking down. And I remember we were up there for a long time before we jumped the first time because we were scared. We jumped off the house before, but our houses aren't 50 to 70 feet high. And so we're looking down there, and we're like, oh, what are we going to do? And his dad's down there, and his dad and his mom were down in the boat, and they're waiting on us because we're just standing there for a long time. They're like, we want to drive around the boat. We want to ski. Get on with it, And so his dad really kind of pushed us along, and as we were up there looking over, and finally, as we're up there, really just like your blood is kind of pumping, your adrenaline's getting going, and you're there, and you're really like, okay, this is probably how I'm going to die. You're up there. You're finally at that point where I'm either going to jump or I'm not. There's no other options, That's where we were. We're at that point. And I think as you got up there and with his dad kind of taunting us like, you guys need to just jump, get down here, we got to go. And these other people that are around watching us, that kind of pushed us along. It's like, we got to do this or we're never going to live this down or whatever. So we finally jumped, we took that leap. And as we're in the air, we go down. We made it, it was fun. And so after that, it was a lot quicker. We would climb those cliffs and just jump, do all kinds of stuff. But I remember something about myself as they videoed that, and as I was jumping off that cliff, I remember going down, and that's a long way to just go down, and you're just in the air, like what do you do? Is you're just falling down as you're going down. But I noticed in the video, I would pump my legs, and I didn't know that when I was in there. As I'm going down, I'm like, both of my legs. So it looked funny in the video. I was like, that's not me. But they're laughing. And I didn't do that. And they're like, you did. I don't know if I was trying to climb back up. They're like, let me back up there. I don't know what happened. It never worked. But yeah, every time I jumped, I would pump my legs and just look really dumb. People would laugh and stuff. But I think about it, you came to that point and it's like, we have to jump. We have to do that. We've been going through this series in Hebrews 11, and we're going to be finishing it out today, talking about faith. And faith, really, this isn't something like we're going to exhaust the whole subject in 8-9 weeks or whatever. You could spend a whole lifetime, which we should as Christians spend a whole lifetime talking about faith. This is essential to our walk with Christ, is faith. And sometimes we define it in a very shallow way, and other times, we need to go deeper and see what this really means. And so we've been talking about that. We've been going through chapter 11, looking at some extreme examples of these people, we call them sometimes giants of the faith in this chapter 11, like what they did and how they lived for God. And I've talked in so many different ways. I've said how they were just regular people like us because we can't be looking at them as if they had some other gene that we don't have, that we can't follow them. They're just regular people who just trusted in God and realized, I don't have anything special about me. I just need to trust in God. He's calling me to do this, and He's going to do the rest. And that's what they saw. And so we've seen that. We've seen all these things that they've had in their life, and really just the common denominator is just faith. That's all they had. It was just faith, trusting in God. And so we're going to look at that a little bit more today. But they backed it up with what they did rather than just saying it. In fact, write this first thing down. Their faith was confirmed through their actions. And really through this whole series, I've kind of said this in so many different ways. It's really the same stuff. Their faith was backed up by what they did. Their faith was confirmed through their actions. So it wasn't just words. It wasn't just, you and I, we can talk a big game. We can come into church and say, I've done all these things. I trust in God no matter what. And then when we're put on the spot, when we're right there and we have to have faith in God or go the other way, when we're at that point of leaping, we can say, yeah, I would do that, but no one's really going to believe you unless you actually jump. Or no, are you really following God? Or are you just saying you're going to follow Him? And so it takes us backing up our words by actually following Him, by action. So that's what I've been trying to say, and that's what we see throughout the Bible. These people, just regular people, but they go further than some of us because they actually followed through in faith and did some extreme things. So I'm going to finish out chapter 11 today. So at the very end, Hebrews 11, 39 and 40, and I'll actually get into chapter 12 as well in a little bit. So look at Hebrews 11, 39 through 40. Speaking of the ones we've read about the past few weeks in chapter 11, it said, these were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. And it's interesting there when he says it, none of them had received what had been promised to them. So you think about it, here's the thing, as I was reading this, in the Old Testament, they were promised the Messiah. They were promised the anointed one, Jesus. He was going to be coming. So they knew that. Their faith was talking about that. But they didn't really know Jesus. Back in the Old Testament, it was still future when Jesus was going to be coming. So they didn't fully know that. Abraham didn't get to fully see him in his day. You know, some of these people, they didn't get to see him in his day. The New Testament times, they got to see this. They got to see this lived out like Jesus was there. This is what it had all been building up to, was with Jesus. So they didn't get to fully see that. They didn't get to see it in their day and time. And he's kind of talking about that. But as I was reading about this, I would even go a little bit further with this and say they didn't get to see the full promise. I would even almost kind of add us in there of this, the perfect plan that God was saying. We didn't get to see it all fully promised. We didn't get to see it all fully the way that God is wanting, until Jesus actually comes back. And that's still future for us. That's still future for the Old Testament, the New Testament, and us, seeing Jesus actually come back and seeing all of this fulfilled, seeing the new heaven and the new earth come to its culmination in the very end. We're still looking forward to that. I am so pumped for that day when that's going to happen. In fact, I'm convinced that we just don't have the vocabulary to describe heaven and how amazing that's going to be. So that's still future. That's still waiting down the line. So I would say it's in two ways here, that they're still waiting. They were looking forward to Jesus coming. But I would say even more than that, it's us still looking forward to everything being changed, everything being renewed. In fact, these bodies that we're in, you can spend hours and hours a day. You can be like The Rock and people that get paid millions of dollars to look massive and be in shape. You can do all that, and these bodies are still going to break down. You may live a little bit longer, you may feel a little bit better, but eventually it's going to break down. That's the thing about our lives and these bodies. This is not the end. This is not it. There is still future, and that's amazing. I think when you have those bad days, it's I still have that to look forward to. This is not it. This is not the final home. And I look at that, and I see them still looking forward to Jesus, and I see us still looking forward to all this coming to the great plan that God is talking about, us going to heaven, the new heaven and new earth. So that is still really kind of future to us, and we see that. No sin, no pain, no suffering. All of that is still going to be coming. So then we talked about faith, and we said that we must learn to trust God no matter what. We got to learn to trust in Him. Even like they were doing, you see the example of them being able to look forward to it. Some of these people died horrible deaths right up to really the last moment. Even look in the Old Testament, even in the New Testament, they were still looking forward to something great. They were trusting in God. We don't fully see Him, but we trust in Him. We don't see all these things, but we see His work. We see His effects out there in this world. We're still going to trust in Him, even though we don't get to see the full promise right in front of us. And that's the idea of faith. That's what we've been talking about. It's you don't always know the next step. You don't know what that next step is, but you're gonna follow Him no matter what. That's the hard part. That's the hard part for us, I think, in faith, is we can say these things, but taking that step when we don't know what's next, that's a scary thing. That's so scary in all of our lives. It's scary for me. I know, and you guys are probably there with me. That's the hardest part for all of us, but that's what you see with all of them. And I looked and throughout chapter 11, just people in the Bible that were commended for their faith, that's what they did. They were all in on this, and that's why we called it this sermon series, All In. They were all in with everything. They're following God. No matter what, it wasn't conditioned. It wasn't, God, I'll be all in with you if you do this for me. I'll be all in for you if you pay the bills, if you do this, if you make me healthy, if you make all these things happen, get me up the corporate ladder. There was no conditions on that. It was, God, I'm all in for you no matter what. And so that's what I see when I'm reading the Bible. If you want to know what that is, it's not as easy as we want to make it sometimes, but it's so worth it. And I see that about this so often. If you look in the Bible too, there are, just in the Ten Commandments, you see that there can be no other God other than God. He is it. There is no other God. You can't have any type of idol, anything. We've done this in other series. Anything that really goes above God, which if we really examine our lives, I would encourage you guys to do this. If you look at your life and see some of the things that are going on in your life, chances are there's things that we have above God. Anything that is really above Him, anything that's you even try to put on par with Him, that is an idol. That's something that it shouldn't be. Anything that we place up there is in the way. Anything that takes precedence over God is in the way. That is an idol. And that is not a good place to be in, to have something that is above him, trusting in him. And that's the whole thing with faith, is like, I'm going to trust in you other than all these other things. And again, we say that. I think it happens so often with Christians in the churches. Like, we say he is up here, but yet when you really look at our life, there's all these other things that are up there. He's pretty high. He's with me. I like him. I like everything about him. But then there's all these other things, and he's just second, third, fourth, fifth place, whatever. He's just he's pretty high up on the ladder, but he's not number one. And that's what we got to understand about faith, is like putting him absolutely number one. I want to go back to chapter 10 here. I wanted to read this to kind of remind us why he builds up to chapter 11, because he's talking about 11. He talks about these faithful people, how they live. But I want to remind us of why we can have this faith, why we have this hope, why we have this confidence. And we talk about Jesus all the time. So I want to read this in Hebrews chapter 10, 19 through 25, because he builds up and he tells us, he kind of builds a foundation for why we have this hope and faith in Jesus. Look at there, Hebrews 10:19 says, "Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain," and I'll talk about that in a minute, it's pretty important, that is his body. "And since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience, and having our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching, when he's coming. All the more as you see that." So I love this, what he's talking about there, why we can have this hope. Why can we have this hope? Why does he talk about chapter 11 and all these people there? And it's because of Jesus. It's because of what he's done. Look, he doesn't say, you guys need to have some type of hope. I want you guys to manufacture this hope and this excitement. Otherwise, you're going to live really depressing lives. No, he doesn't say that. He says you can have this hope because of Jesus, because of what he did. So he's not just telling us you need to just live better. I don't know if you've ever had bad advice like that. You're just like, man, everything's terrible. And they're just like, why? You should not be in a bad mood. And then they just leave you at that. That's not what he's saying. He's not just saying, just be better. He's saying you can have this hope, you can have this confidence because of what Jesus has done. And he goes on, and I know I've mentioned to you guys this before, but in the Old Testament with the temple, they had a certain place in the temple that was called the Holy of Holies that you couldn't just go to. It wasn't like we would just go in there and like pray, and talk to God. You go in there just on your own and stuff, you would just die. I've talked about that before, how brutal that it was. You go in there. Sometimes I've heard that they tied ropes to the priests and pulled them, just in case they died in there and had to pull them out because nobody could go in there. Everybody would die. So anyway, there was this Holy of Holies in there. The priest could only go once a year, had to do he had to do sacrifices for him, for the people, had to do ceremonial washings, all this stuff. It was extremely important to really do this. Not just a slap on the wrist, like I said, it was, you'll die if you don't do this right. So it was extremely important. And this is a place really that God set up that they could really go to him. It was like the throne room of God, like going to him where his presence was in this temple. Now, I'm not saying God's confined to this certain area, but he did that, I believe, for us to really see this. But that's how it was. They would have to go in there, only the priest. And now this is the significance of this. So what was happening is that when Jesus came, when he went to the cross, when he died, the curtain of the temple, the veil was supernaturally just torn in two. An amazing thing. It wasn't like somebody broke in there like, I want to tear this up. This makes me mad. They killed Jesus and tore the curtain. First off, this is what I've read about. I was looking up the dimensions, and I've done this before, but I forgot. The curtain that I read was 60 feet high, 30 feet wide, and 4 inches thick. So this isn't like, well, I got one of those in my living room window, Kyle, we got a pretty big one there, because no, your wall would fall down. This is a massive, really, curtain, this veil that was up there. And this thing torn in two. And what's important about that is like what Jesus did is like he gave us a way through him to be able to go to God. Like we can now go to him. You don't have to go to me. It's not as if I go back to this room and like, what do you guys need to talk about? Shoot it out to me or text me. I'm going to go in there and talk to God because you guys can't do it. That's not how it is. He opened up this way where now all of us can go to the throne room of God. And we can go to him in prayer through Jesus. We trust in him in faith. It's like Now we go to him. He's our mediator. We can do that. And it was such a huge thing that really happened right there. And you see that. And so he's building up to saying, this is what Jesus has done. This is why we can now go to God. This is the huge thing. This is what changed now about this. And so he's saying, that's why you can now have hope. That's why you can go to him. That's why, like you see these people having faith, this is what we're trying to say. This is what you can now do. This is the amazing thing that Jesus did. Now I want to jump up to chapter 12, because we just finished chapter 11, but I wanted to read a little bit here now as we kind of ended out chapter 11 and go to verses 1 through 2 here. He said, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. I'm also going to go into verse 3. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So just when I was studying this, like verse 1 there, what that does for me is just kind of paint this fantastic, like surreal-like picture of the saints, the people that have gone on, you know, and they're there. And I pictured this Olympic stadium filled with just Christians up there, just like cheering me on, you know, and not just me, like everybody here. So I'm not just being really vain here, like they're just for me. Get your own Olympic stadium. No, I see this Olympic stadium and I just picture this, like this cloud of witnesses, and they're just there. They've gone through this race of life. They've gone through this. They've endured. Many of them have been martyred for Christ, like they trusted him their whole life and followed him to the very end. They breathed their last breath, unwilling to recant, unwilling to say, I'm not going to follow you, Christ, when they could have done that. And so I see this great cloud of witnesses, and I just picture that kind of pushing us on. And I don't think it's any mistake that even, I was reading the commentary that just kind of pointed this out. I thought it was a good point when he said cloud of witnesses, this cloud. And I think it's almost maybe a picture of a heavenly picture, you know. We're supposed to get this like this great cloud of witnesses of people who've gone on before, these Christians, and now they've followed God to the very end, and they're there now, like kind of pushing us on, kind of cheering us on, not laughing at us, not saying, what are you guys doing? You guys read this, but they're cheering us on, saying, you can do this. We've gone through this. He is faithful. We've seen this. We've seen it in our lives. We know this now. We're resting with him now, and I picture that, and I see that with really this picture of what he's trying to say, just kind of remembering this cloud of witnesses that's all over us. After painting that picture, and I think the action we're supposed to take, and write this down, is to strip away everything that holds us back. That's what I see with this. And it's interesting because you see, we don't exactly know. Some think Paul wrote Hebrews. We don't exactly know, the writer of Hebrews. But when you see in the New Testament, you see Paul talking, he wrote about sports a lot, which they had sports back then. I think it's just like us today. We like sports. It's a good illustration. People watch it. We leave here and we go and watch sports sometimes. It's something we know. It's something we can relate to. And so Paul really liked those, and he talked about them. And the writer here is talking about some of these sports, and they use these illustrations. And he's talking about this race. And I think it's a perfect really kind of illustration here to talk about this. Because have you ever tried to race somebody? Like you have some bet going, you're like, I can beat you, I'm faster than you, you got this bet going, you're with your family, you know, and you used to be this athlete back in the day. You know how it is. You got like an Al Bundy story, like 4 touchdowns in one game. It's not a good show. Does anybody watch? Anyway, you've got those stories, and you want to go racing. You're like, I'm going to prove you wrong. So do you go out there like in all your baggy clothes? You know, if you're going to go race somebody, you go out and put on, you got a Snuggie on, you know, it's at night, and you're like, are you going to go out there and race in your Snuggie or whatever? You're probably not. You're going to be dehydrated. You're going to sweat. It's going to be really horrible. It's not really going to work out that good. I don't see anybody doing it. So you're going to strip away some of those things. Have you ever watched in the Olympics, I guess the racers or even in college and all the sports when they're running, the things that they wear? It's like the least amount as possible. Like they've got a tank top on. Guys wearing way too short of shorts. You're like, dude, do not sit down in those. You're like, I don't want to keep standing. You know what I mean? So just really as little as possible. Shoes that are like light, you know, make you run. You want to strip away everything as much as possible so that you can go about the race in life, or the race that you're running. And I think it's the same way when you think about with the spiritual life. That's the picture he's saying. Strip away all these things. Life is going to throw tons of stuff at you. If you've been around any amount of time, you know that. There's just so many things that are vying for our attention. You turn on the TV and Just advertising is all about this. You need this. This will make you happy. You deserve this. All these things, and they're throwing it at us, and we think, I've got to have this. I've got to have these things. There's an app for that. All these different things, you've got to have them. And we think about that. And he's saying, strip these things away, because things are going to distract you. Things are going to try to tear you away. Things are going to try to say, you know what? You don't need God. You need this. This is what's going to make you happy. This is what you need. The things that you're trying to find in God, this is going to make you happy. You need this and this and this. This will help you. You don't need to go to church. You don't need to worship God. This is what you actually need. This isn't even true. And all those things are constantly coming at us all the time in this world. It is. That's the race of life. That's us going through life, and all these things are trying to tear us away from Him all the time. Just think about it in a race. As you're running along, think about some distractions that could be there. You're running. Maybe you're just on a track, or you're out there doing cross country or whatever, and there's a bed. Which, I don't know why there would be a bed there. First you're going to get kind of past that, like, why is there a bed here? I don't know. But if you're there, you see this. And I know, like, if you're getting really tired, you're looking at that, and you're like, that would be so comfortable just to stop and lay down. I just want to stop and just rest for a while. But you're not going to get up. You're going to lay there, you're going to get cramped up, your muscles are going to get tight. You're not going to want to finish. Or somebody's over there with, handing out water, and then another one down the road is like, I've got the sweetest sweet tea in the world. If you like that, that's me. I like that more than McDonald's and all the other ones and the chicken places and all that. Or maybe Dr. Pepper, and they're just giving this out for free. And I'm running along, I'm thinking, man, this would be great. It's cold. I would love this stuff. But then on the other side, I'm like, but this is probably not good for me because I'm sweating and I'm tired. All this Dr. Pepper and stuff is going to make me tired. It's probably going to make me throw up. I will not finish the race. And I thought about those things. It's distractions. In our world, as we're going along, distractions will try to tear us away from God. It happens all the time. And sometimes it doesn't seem all that harmful. It's just things that are coming at us, and you're like, well, that'll be helpful. But all these things come on against us, and it distracts us from really following Him. And I think the idea Satan wants is to keep us away from God, keep us off track, keep us from even finishing the race. That's his whole goal. So I say we got to strip those things away. We got to get them away. Church, we got to get rid of this excess weight, the things that's in our life that's keeping us from continuing to go forward and following Him, the things that's keeping us from persevering and following Him. Let me just throw a few verses here as I come to the end. Just a lot of different verses I was thinking about as I led through this. Galatians 6:9. I got them up here on the screen. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And I always say that to Christians, like, this is all of us. Sometimes we think everybody else is doing good and maybe we're not doing good. I'm telling you, all of us struggle with this. You want to see things happen. You want to see God move in your life. I see this. I want to see God do things. And there's times when you just kind of want to give up and you think, man, it's just not happening the way that I think. And He tells us that this is God. He's telling us, like, do not give up. He's going to do things. You're going to reap He's going to do things. He's going to bring about these things. He's going to bring about fruit in our lives if we continue to follow Him, trust in Him. It may not be the way that we're thinking. He is going to do things. He is working behind the scenes. I've seen that so often. But that's what He's telling us. He says, do not give up. In fact, James tells us about this. James 1:12, he says, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love Him. So persevere. Keep going. How do we learn to persevere and have this mentality and this strength whenever these things come at us? Well, James tells us a few verses before that in James 1:2-4. He says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. And we've said this so often, but we forget this, I know, as Christians, is that to grow, to become more mature, to be able to persevere, it's like we have to go through tests. We have to go through trials. So this life is going to be hard, but that's okay. It's okay for us to have difficult things. It's okay for us to go through tests, and it's okay for things to be hard. I know it's easy for me to just say that. You're probably like, you don't know what I'm going through. And I don't. But I know that God says He allows some of these things to make us stronger, to allow us to be able to trust in Him, to make us stronger, to get us to a point where He's going to use us. It teaches us to persevere. So often people are going to try to tear us off track. They're going to try to tear us off course, and we're going down a certain path, and they're going to try to throw things at you to make you go off this way and that way. But look at Proverbs 3:5-6. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. People are going to try to tear you off. Satan's going to try to take you off these different paths. And he says, submit to God. He's going to make your path straight. We're given these amazing promises from God, who is incapable of lying. He cannot lie. He gives us these promises, yet I know I've done it in my life. I've tried to test him on those things. He cannot lie. And then he says in Luke 21:19, stand firm and you will win life. Stand firm and you will win life. I just thought about that with this race, this life that we have as we're going through, and it's really tough. This life that's mapped out for us. He wants us to trust in him. He wants us to persevere, continue to go. Be strong. Christian, be strong. Stay strong with God. Live for him. Do not give up. I think that's what I see throughout all of this is do not give up. We should not be giving up on him. That's what he wants. And then you see, like, through all of the mess and the chaos of life, and I'm talking about stripping everything away, the point of that is to have that straight path and to have that fixed point of something to look at. Because it is, and you think about when you allow everything to come in your life, it's so hard to figure out, like, what am I even doing? What path am I even on? And you're just all over the place. And you get those things out of the way, and you have that fixed point where you continue to focus on it and strive towards it, and it gets all those other things out of the way. You stay on him. It's like, I guess the way I was picturing it is like the ice skaters, whenever they spin around and they spin like 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I would just be puking everywhere. It'd be a mess. But you see, they turn really quick, and like they have that fixed point, and they go around, and they can do that. I still couldn't do that. But isn't that what they do? They have some fixed point and like spin around, and then they look to it, and it keeps them from, I guess, getting dizzy or falling down. But in a way, I think it's the same way. It's like we need to have that fixed point. We need something that we look at, and it's Jesus. We got to look to him, and that's the final thing I would say is keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. And that is faith. That's what faith is about. We try to describe this, and it's trusting him with everything. It's saying, I'm all in. I'm going to push all these other things out of the way. And even though it's hard, even though this may alter my life in so many different ways, even though it's may be difficult, I may lose people, I may lose jobs or whatever it is that I'm striving for, I'm going to focus on him because that is number one. That is faith. That is trusting in him. Do not listen to what this world tells you is success, because it will lead you wrong. It will lead you down the wrong path. Fix your eyes on Jesus, even when life is tough, even when the world is coming at us, guns blazing, full-on attack, trying to tear us away and trying to take our attention to focus on them. It is to be on Jesus, and that's what I see. That's what I see there. Sometimes he's all you have. But rest assured, just trusting in Jesus, like he is all you need. Sometimes he may be all you have. Sometimes he may say, I have nothing else. Everyone's abandoned me. All this stuff is abandoned me. I feel alone on all this stuff. And he's all I have. And sometimes, I'm telling you, that is the best place that you can be, is right there with him. When everything has been stripped away, sometimes, I'll say this out of the mercy of God, that God will allow us to go through things. We don't like that. Sometimes we may be mad at God, but sometimes he will allow us to go through some of those things because he says, I got to strip this stuff away because you can't see me anymore. Because you're focused on all this stuff. You may be successful in this world. You may do some things. You may have some fun times in this world. People may want to be like you, want to have the stuff that you have, but you can't see me. And in the end, it will be worse. You will not have me. In the end, in eternal life, you will not have me. And he strips that stuff away out of his mercy sometimes because he wants us to see him. And that's where I think it's the best place for us to be. Church, I don't know where you are. I don't know your life. I don't know the things that's pulling you away or trying to take you a different path. But I just pray that today, let's make that commitment to him. Let's be all in. That's what I was trying to say, really, just with the name of this series. As we're looking at faith, we cannot exhaust this enormous subject. But let's take that commitment ourselves. Let's go to prayer. Let's talk to God, and let's be all in with him. Let's even, maybe I'm just saying a general statement there. You don't know what that means. That means just trusting him. Let's go to him in prayer. Let's talk to him. Let's get into his word and say, okay, what is it I need to be doing? What are the things in my life that I've put up here that are important? Are these things important? Are they taking my time away from you? And let's examine those things. It's so important for us to be able to do that. We've got to do that. You guys, go ahead and bow your heads.